So we're here at Linaro Connect, and you're the Linaro CTO.
That's right, yes, that's my title. Adult attention deficit type like me, yes, I'm the CTO. I wave my arms.
What do you say?
CTOs generally tend to be technologists, right? They're interested in different bits and pieces. They're not generally people you want to run engineering, because they like new things, they want to be interested, they're always playing with gadgets and thinking about the future strategy. So I'm generally speaking not best well known for concentrating or for running. So I describe myself and the people that work in my little team, Octo, as attention deficit adults, which is kind of funny, but we're all similar. We're not big on bureaucracy, we tend to get excited about new things.
So do you have to pick and choose the things to point towards, or
no? That's a very good question. They normally kind of occur to you. So one of the things that's as you look beyond the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, constantly thinking, okay, what's the next thing? Where do we go? When Linaro was formed, we formed it for a reason that we wanted to improve the ecosystem for ARM Linux, to allow products based on ARM Linux to be everywhere. And as the club was formed, we kind of concentrated on mobile for a start, because that's kind of the pressing need, and the kernel and the amount of code in there for all these different mobile platforms, every different chip from TI, every different chip from Samsung. But there was always the notion that there is a whole other bunch of problems to solve, perhaps in new markets like server, which is always very interesting. So in terms of choosing an actual topic, then I tend to look towards the next market, the next thing. So I spend a lot of the last little while looking towards the next levels of standardization, which is like UEFI, whatever, and the next market, server, which has got a particular set of needs, networking's got a set of needs. So there's always plenty of topics.
So, for example, if we want to have ARM-powered laptops, is that an issue that Linaro needs to solve?
It's an issue that Linaro should be involved in solving. So if you look at the laptop space at the moment, if I'm a manufacturer, I want to build a laptop, I go and choose an AMD or an Intel x86 chip. It's a fairly standard platform. I bolt the bits together, put the battery in, I put Windows on it, do some validation, it runs down the product line, it works. If you're lucky in the Linux community, there's enough information released and that becomes a laptop you can run Linux on. But it's a very standard platform. If you look at the ARM space, there's no support there for the BIOSes or the bootloaders. Everyone does their own thing. So there's a whole bunch of standards around bootloaders, which is where UEFI comes into it, that have to happen in order to enable that. Typically as well, a distribution would install a standard image that will run on many platforms, and that's not true today in the mobile space, not true in Android, not true in anywhere. So there's a bunch of, it's sort of pipe cleaning exercise to allow that to happen. And actually I think, while server might be a relatively small market in terms of volume compared to mobile and desktop and laptop, they demand standards, so that will pull the standards through. So where I'm at is, if you push towards server, it will enable, not laptop, but we're in a post-PC world, so I think laptop and tablet kind of end up merging. It's a very thin device with a long battery life. Let's keep asking for 10-hour battery and no fan. And I think a laptop becomes kind of a tablet with a keyboard and some places you can plug things in. But I think doing the work on server gets you back round into enabling that market. And it's a very different market. And as I say, if you look, most of the manufacturers there now, they don't do Linux laptops, they do laptops that are standard enough to run Linux on. And ARM would all be about Linux rather than that. And Windows 8 changes that as well, and that drives a bunch of standardization.
And they're going to allow Linux as well, right? With the secure boot?
Yeah.
They can be in Linux and Windows.
Yes, if you... the standards should allow you to boot a non-secure OS of your choice, or non-Windows OS of your choice. Yeah, but actually you bring up a really good point. So the Linux community in general has avoided standards, doesn't think very well of them, hates firmware, hates BIOS, doesn't like ACPI. And actually the truth is that the Linux community needs to be engaged to get those standards right. And so that's one thing I've been pursuing from the point of view of ARM Linux, but it's good for all Linux, that we get involved with ACPI if we can. and UEFI, we try and drive the standards to support what we want to do. Because, standards are a good thing. There's nothing wrong with them. But if the people that write them aren't including Linux in their thinking, then they won't be right for Linux. And, we all know where that is.
So how many employees are there in Linaro now? 120 something?
I might be the wrong person to ask. It's there's a mixture. So Linaro is made up of assignees from different member companies. It's made up of people who are employed by Linaro directly, which is growing steadily over time as the organisation matured. It's made up as well of contractors. So roughly speaking, there are about 130 people, of which some of the order of 90 or 80 or 90 are engineers. So the bulk of the people are engineers. This is an engineering organisation. It was set up to go do stuff rather than be a standards body where you write down what you want and hope somebody does it. Because most industry consortiums, when they start, are groups of people wanting to do something in the market together and perform some standards, but they're not about wanting to actually write code. And I think particularly in the ARM Linux space, there's a need for an organisation where you can collaborate and write code. That's what I do. That's what makes Linaro kind of unique.
So of those 80, 90 people, you're the CTO. Does that mean you kind of like telling everybody what they should do?
No, gosh,
no?
That's just not scalable. So I have a tiny little team called Octo, Office of the CTO. And then there's this engineering organisation run by Kiko. The Office of the CTO is 3-4 of us, depending, it varies slightly. My role is twofold. One is to ensure that the work that's going on, it all fits together in these rights and that. And so there's a kind of an oversight across different bits. So a couple of my guys have been working hard on Big Little, ensuring the architecture's right in terms of software a bit. And the other part of it is go and look at the new areas such as server, enterprise, networking, etc. I'm very involved. We run Linaro via a set of requirements, and I'm involved in helping draw up the requirements. I also, along with Kiko, the engineering manager, I chair something called the TSC, Technical Steering Committee, and that is the body in Linaro that decides what to do. So they look at the requirements and make sure the right people are in the right team working on it. An example would be, we think over time we'd like to see the Android kernel merge with the generic Linux kernel. So we've been working on this. So that's a mission, and we keep working away, and that's driven by the TSC.
So how awesome is that job? I mean, how awesome is it?
It's one of the best jobs on the planet. It suits me immensely.
One of the best jobs on the planet?
For me, yeah, no. So my background is many, many years ago, as a much younger engineer, I worked for Digital Equipment Corporation back in the VAX VMS days on networking. I was around when the Alpha processor was created, started to work on that, doing GNU tools. Got involved with this crazy student called Linus who was building this funny operating system called Linux, helped do the port to Alpha, that's where I met open source, and then went to work on strong ARM and then moved to work for ARM. So my background is kind of open source, and so being part of ARM, when we start to look at the world and think, do you know what, we need to have a way of getting the ARM companies together and collaborating. So we came up with this idea of an open collaboration engineering thing, and I was foolish enough to write the first set of requirements and really start pitching for this, so then I became CTO. So it's been a wonderful thing to do, and it fits very well with what I like to do.
Was that only 2 years ago?
Yes, only 2 years.
2 years ago the idea came, kind of?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah?
I mean, up until then, everyone's working away on their own bits. You get a certain amount of fragmentation. And if you think about the kernel maintainer tree, you've got Linus here and Russell, and then the ARM guys would be down in their board-specific bits. And really, part of Linaro isn't just engineering code, it's about kind of social engineering. And what's happening now, we've got ARMsoft, the code's well maintained. Those maintainers are now operating in the mainstream kernel maintainers area. We're kicking the tires and wanting to do changes in power management, thermal. With Big Little, we want to look at the scheduler. I mean, we're just all over the code, but not for bad reasons. I mean, for the good reason that the kernel needs to change in order to support the diversity that is ARM, but without fragmentation. Diversity not a bad thing, fragmentation bad, diversity good. No one wants the same platform everywhere. So yeah, back to your point about jobs. It's a brilliant job because it's open source and it leverages all these amazing people and these technologies. It also links so well with all these different companies. So I get to see and know what's going on and meet with the technical architects and people in all these different companies. And right now, Linux, with Android in the mobile space, in server space, it's a really good place to be. And as technology is merging, as your car arrives in your garage and your music was downloaded on your home laptop, it gets on your... it's an amazing time in computing in this... you might call it post-PC world, but however you put it, it's an amazing time to be where I am and be in the amazing place I am. So how could I not be happy doing that?
Is it fair to say that what's going on right here in Linaro is the cutting edge of Linux development on this planet?
It's cutting edge. The thing I like about Linaro is it's very can-do. It feels to me like the very early days of Linux. So I won't name it, but sometimes I go to a Linux conference and a guy gives up and he gives some slides. Now he probably gave the same slides 6 months ago in another Linux conference. And it's quite good stuff, it's quite interesting, but it's fairly static. Here what we do is we do engineering. Think of this as Linaro's office for the week, and we invite friends. So the morning sessions are all discussions and technology and how should we do it. The afternoon, unfortunately for me, is a lot of management and TSC, but it's also the hackers up there. They all go and write code and make things work, which is pretty amazing. They're starting to do that in some things like plumbers. They do that. So there's getting things done, making decisions. That's what I like. So it just feels very vibrant, which is good.
But to be able to do a session in the morning and actually code it in the afternoon, you need to be some of the best programmers in the world, no?
I can't believe we've got some of them. These guys have done some amazing things. This is a tiny example because it's in my team. I've believed for a long time that in the ARM architecture v7, that hard float is better than soft float. It's to do with how the floating point registers are carried across. So I've believed this. We've got a couple of guys working on it. They've been pushing at it. They're part of the reason that the Ubuntu 12.04 LTS release is built to the hard float binary ABI. And it's a necessary precursor for the server market. But it's also the reason why Fedora architecture v7 support is hard float. So it's a little bit of work leveraging great things happening.
All right, so that was just 2 years, and the next 2 years is going to be like insane.
Yeah, I think we're going to. So my view is that as an organisation, we're going to grow, and we're going to go tackle those problems that are in the server space, the networking space, IVI, and make things happen there.
So powering the post-PC world client and the server cloud and everything.
Yeah, the computer's in an interesting place because you have got this. If I speak into my phone and the voice recognition client runs software on the server, on the phone, I don't know, everything's joined up, data and code. So the ARM architecture will be everywhere.